All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Um, okay, so let's see. We got Samantha, we've got Holly. Looks like Nick DeMayo's listening in. Robert, Doug, Steve, Rick, Sarah. Waiting on Julie. And Commissioner Hedberg. There's Commissioner Hedberg, so just waiting on Julie, and I think we'll be able to pretty much go. There she is. Okay, I think we've got everybody here. Correct me if I'm wrong. That said, let's go ahead and just call the meeting to order. I didn't send out a formal meeting agenda, but I think the last time we met, we were going to, we talked about a number of the feedback that we got from all the department heads as far as the requested reductions. We met with the commissioners to get their input. One of that was requesting that perhaps they reconsider pulling deeds out, and they've stuck to their position where they want that deeds to be there. We know the whole purpose of doing what we're doing is trying to reduce the cost of the project, perhaps maybe to garner more support for the project.
Jim,
So,
before you go any further, should we approve minutes from prior meetings?
yeah, we can do that. So did everybody get a chance to look at the two different meeting minutes? There was the meeting minutes from December 10th and December 19th. And basically want to put up to a vote to approve those minutes. Everybody's had a chance to review those. A few have sent corrections, and the corrected minutes have been redistributed. So I'm
I make a
requesting that
motion to approve
we,
both sets as amended.
Second,
okay. That's
all in
done.
favor?
Aye.
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 Any nayers? None. Okay. Really, today, just an FYI for some of you that may not be aware, we've gone ahead and signed a change order with LaValle, approving the latest round of work to continue working with them to, well, it's going to affect programming and basically kind of redoing this project to try to shrink it if possible. So that's done. It's all signed and out of the way. Nothing holding us back there. The most significant thing I see on the table right now is, in fact, is Jill with us? She or Dan were supposed to join us, and I don't
She
see
is.
either one.
Yeah, Jill is.
She is, okay, I just don't see her on here. Okay, good. Yeah, the biggest obstacle that I could see was out of the sheriff's request was her concerns for being responsible for the security of the facility. She asked that we'd reconsider putting the judicial branch on the first floor and moving everybody to the top floor. And I think on the surface, I don't think there's any objection, but really what it boils down to, from what I've gleaned, is it's going to be extremely challenging for LaValle to come up with some way of keeping the required paths of moving people about, staff, public, and inmates, keeping them segregated without having paths where they cross. To me, my understanding is that's really the greatest challenge. So I'll kind of turn this over to LaValle. I don't know if Bob, you or Doug have chewed on this since we last talked to see if there was any possible way of achieving that.
I do a quick question. Have you spoken to the courts at all and gotten their opinion on this? Sarah and Steve and so forth?
Yes, I did speak with Sarah and, theoretically, there's no opposition to going to the first floor, but their greatest concerns, once again, are their answers predicated on, provided we can ensure that we have the proper segregation that's required for staff, public, and inmates. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, if there was something I've missed.
No, I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, that's our biggest concern that, that's like the fundamental element of courthouse design, right? To have the three different zones and not to have any particular path intersect. And so we haven't been able to figure out a way to do that without having the courtrooms on the second floor where the secure elevators can go up to the core of the building, or, some other possibility. But, that's what we've looked at over the years, and, maybe someone else can come up with a different concept.
I can speak to the alternative that we discussed. The courts were not a part of the last meeting, but Jim and Sheriff Myers, we were together discussing what this might mean if we were to keep these paths segregated, is that the Sally Port would then need to go to the basement level. If the courts are on the first level and the sheriff is agreed to be on the second level, and we want to keep the paths segregated, that is the secure corridors coming up through the center of the building, that means that the Sally Port would need to go to the basement level, and it would be a setup that we've done before. We're doing it in a building that's currently being constructed in Rochester. So it would be that type of setup. The drawback of that is we had actually talked about that possibility early in design when discussing different site plan options and different strategies to, once it became clear that the tunnel option was going to be extremely expensive, prohibitively expensive, we explored this option. And it was rejected due to additional site costs. And so going down to the basement level will incur things like retaining walls and site costs. But other than that, that would be the way to maintain the segregation necessary for security that Sarah mentions. If we are to go, we anticipate that if we're to move forward with the courts being on the second floor, that is the way that we would do it.
I think one of the things that comes into play here also is, Doug, as long as you're on a roll here, we should talk a little bit about what the ramifications on the budget might be to expand. One of the reasons we put the Sally Port on the ground levels because of, it's less expensive, right, Doug, and less, much more affordable. I think that if the aim is to cut the budget down, I'm pretty safe to say that, moving the Sally Port and so forth to the lower level, like we have to do in Rochester, which is just a courthouse, right? Is going to be more costly. And then the other thing is that correct, Doug? Reasonably to say that?
Yes, taken alone, that change will likely incur additional cost. Now, in terms of whether that balances out with the other revisions being made, with the different departments having reductions and any other possible reduction that we might
Mhm.
discuss and haven't yet. I'm not sure. That remains to be seen, but it may not end up with a net cost savings, which I know is the goal here, one of the primary goals.
Yeah, the only other thing, and again, we have to put puck to pad and pen to paper, as they say, to, as you said, Doug, to really understand what the impact is. The other impact might be that to create the proper circulation for the courts on first floor and to do those 3 zones of separation that was mentioned, um, that might also potentially create additional need for hallways or other separations, right, Doug, that could potentially. So we're trying to cut the building back on one end. So we'll see, right? That's what we're doing this exercise. But a couple of things that would be required to put courts on first floor might actually result in some additional space or possible cost. So how it balances out to you, to your point, Doug, we won't know until we do it.
Anybody from the committee or, Sarah, judicial or sheriff's department have any comment to what you just heard? I mean, basically, it sounds like we're kind of between a rock and a hard place. We're trying to reduce the cost of the building, but it sounds like this one requested change may indeed add cost to the building. And is there?
I think that I'm not the sheriff or Sarah, but this is Julie. I think that we also have to not just look at this from a construction costs perspective, but from a long-term perspective. And if Sheriff Myers is telling us that it's going to cost us operationally a lot more to have the courts on the second floor for security purposes, then it may make sense to have the building laid out in the most efficient way, because operations are costs that will go forward forever versus construction costs that may be a little bit more for us to construct it this way initially.
Yeah, operational costs come into play as well, of course. I mean, it's hard, we can't really quantify that, but you're right.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Sheriff, but that's part of your concern is security and it costing more to have additional staff with having the courts on the second floor.
Yeah, that makes complete sense how you just laid it out. But just removing our connection from the jail we'll have to have deputies doing transports, and it's quite a few. No one sees it because it's in a back hallway, but right now court security is able to do that because of that J connector, and just removing that connection alone is just gonna give us an uptick, and really we're gonna need more deputy positions just with that. And then add in like I've said before, it's hard right now to find court security people that actually want to do that job. It doesn't pay a lot, and I mean, like there's firearms qualifications and other certifications that they have to do. So it's just not very thankful, or it's a thankless job, and it doesn't pay well. So it's kind of where we're at.
Are we, as we're doing our architectural work and so forth, is there possibly to quantify that, to pick up on what Julie said? Wait, you can actually tell the voters, well, if we do this, we're gonna save, X amount of dollars every year in perpetuity, roughly. I mean, we don't have a handle on that. It had to come from the county.
Yeah, that's definitely something we could look at from an operational standpoint. I mean, I think to the sheriff's point, operationally, without the connection to the jail, it's likely to cost more money anyways because of the increased costs and having to have deputies do transports from the jail to the courthouse, which obviously will then will likely be via vehicles. So, maybe at this point in time, that's worth taking a really hard look at to just see, what makes the most sense operationally going forward for that.
Jim and
This is-
Julie, oops, go ahead, Kate.
No, go ahead, Sarah.
No, I was just gonna just comment on what we have today in the existing building, and I'm sure everybody's aware of it, but I just kind of wanted to highlight it because it's kind of what we're talking about, right? So the connector from the prison goes right into the back of the existing facility, and where it empties into the county facility is in the back staff hallway where the judicial branch is. And so there's that path of travel, intersect. And so that's really one of the major concerns there, because we, obviously we can't duplicate what's there today. So I just kind of wanted to highlight that as well.
And my concern is that we really looked at the cost, not only of construction, but maintenance of the connector to the Department of Corrections. And it did seem prohibitive at that time, even factoring in that we would likely have to hire more deputies.
Okay.
Commissioner, I don't know how thoroughly we worked that through. I mean, I think, initially we had planned on connecting the building to the courthouse, to the jail all along. And then, then we went through the conversations where we didn't think that was necessary to have the building connected. And we talked a little bit about additional staff, but I don't think we ever really quantified what that looked like. And we know that in order to connect the two buildings, it will be very expensive, and ongoing will have expenses. But I don't think we ever priced out like how many new deputies we would be talking about, what that expense looks like, what that looks like, going forward into however many years in the future. So, I think
So
some of
is
that
that-
stuff is somewhat, it's just forecasting at this point in time, because we don't know. Look what's happened in the criminal justice system just the past 6 months with the changes to bail reform and the increase that we're seeing in the jail population. And so it's a little bit harder to forecast exactly what that looks like 3 or 4 years into the future. But
I know in our initial conversations, when we're looking at initially nixing the connector, the sheriff had said that basically they were looking at one additional deputy, but at some point after the decision was made to nix it, the number changed to 4. And Jill, is it still 4 for doing transports?
I think Julie just explained it pretty well, that it's unknown. But yeah, I would say with the volume that we're doing already, and like she just mentioned, the rise in population in the jail, I think that at least 3 or 4, just to
Okay.
plan for, just to be able to plan and actually put a number to it as far as like
Okay.
salaries and benefits and everything.
So without a connector, you're looking at 3 or 4 deputies for transports. Now, if we had decided to put the connector back in, obviously you're going to need more bailiffs in order to do the transports. And I'm not sure what your thoughts are, whether it needs to be 1 or 2 bailiffs doing it, depending on the level of inmate that you're bringing across, you know? Have you thought about how many more bailiffs you would need if you did have that connector?
Like I said, we've got at least 3 openings now, and we can't even fill those. So, I think it would just come down to deputies having to do that transport.
Okay, so that's good to know, because if that's really what it's gonna come down to, it makes sense to me, based on the information you just presented, that if it's gonna be deputies anyway, why would we put reconsider putting a connector in? So in my mind, I think we need to just focus on, coming up with whatever that cost is for the additional 3 to 4 deputies, long term, and then weighing that against what Julie said, which is the short-term construction cost of
Putting a Sally port in the basement.
yes, exactly. I think that's exactly what you said. So I guess it's kind of like a set of binoculars, kind of tuning in on what I think we need to do at this point is go back to where we were looking at the Sally port underneath, find out, through the reductions that we have that have come out in this latest round, see if maybe it's a wash on putting that back under. Hopefully it would be. And hopefully it'll be just the 3 to 4 deputies that we're gonna have to hire for long-term versus more bailiffs, which seem to be pretty tough to get. Thoughts? Does that
Yeah,
summarize?
Oh, can I just, I don't think that a tunnel or any kind of like connection is even should even be a consideration. I just think given how much was spent on the J connector, which is just a hallway that doesn't run a very far span, that the price for a tunnel would be kind of ridiculous. So I think if you guys can, if they're able to figure out a way to put everything in the basement and just have the courts on the first floor, that would be the most ideal setup.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, it was Bob's point was, okay, if we do all this exercise, we most likely, there's a possibility that the building cost might grow, but you might have enough offsets to where maybe the cost won't. And, but he's also saying that when you go out and you talk to the public, they're gonna have to understand that, well, because of these changes, whatever, and the need for, the deputies long-term, just gotta be able to explain the rationale for what we're following.
Yeah, I mean,
But it-
you already have, I'm sorry, you already have a number for the connector from when we did the study, right, Doug, before we decided not to proceed with it. So that's an easy one. We do have a initial number on that. We'll do an updated concept plans, for courts on the first floor with a Sally port in the lower level, just like we're doing basically in Rochester right now, right, Doug? And that might solve some of the circulation issues. You have some reductions in your program. I believe you shared those already, Jim, with us. It was kind of a while ago, but we'll circle back with you on that, Doug and I. But at the end, we're going to have an updated budget. That's part of what we're going to give you. So at least you'll know where you stand. And then the biggest piece, as you noted, is the people part of it, the need for bailiffs or deputies and their salaries and benefits, or those things will have to come from you. And I think that's a case that can be made to the public. That makes
So
sense.
I assume, Julie, probably you and Sheriff Myers would be the ones putting together that document that would kind of articulate what those long-term costs look like. Is that accurate?
And I absolutely think that would be, yeah, I mean, if Sheriff Myers just comes up with a number, I certainly can put together the costs associated with 3 or I mean, and I can just do a number for 3 or 4 people based off our current, wage scales and our benefits. But it sounds to me like the sheriff, you're saying those deputies are going to be needed either way, whether the courts are on the first floor or the second floor. You're still going to need the deputies to be doing the transports from the jail.
Yes.
But you'd need additional security within the building if the courts are on the second floor.
Yeah. And like we brought up in the last meeting, that's the biggest draw of public to the building is the courts. It's significant over the rest of the departments that are there. So it just makes more sense to keep the biggest population of the public on the first floor, and then that's easier for court security, and we wouldn't necessarily need to increase how many people we have on the floor.
But it's just so I understand, but if it's on the second floor, you feel you would need to increase the people working on a day-to-day basis inside the courthouse to provide security.
Correct.
And that could come down to having to be deputies because you don't have court security officers.
Right.
Okay.
I would like to take just a moment to confirm that what I described makes sense to both the courts and the sheriff's office as a way forward as we hit the ground running with these requested revisions here. Sarah, I assume that you understand what I'm saying, but I just want to confirm that that makes sense to essentially pursue the Rochester Courthouse approach here.
Yes, I think it does, Doug. And I mean, basically, we have that in several locations. I would just want to give, our team a heads up on that. But I think if the path of travel can be maintained, that would be workable for us.
And Chief Myers, if you could just confirm that the approach that I described makes sense to you. I know you're not as familiar with the Rochester Courthouse, but when I described the Sallyport being in the basement, that will be no longer adjacent to your department, obviously on the second floor. But what I say, hopefully that makes sense. I'm doing my best to describe it without having revised these plans, so forgive me. Does that make sense to you? And are there any programmatic changes that would need to be visited as a result of it? For example, do you need additional space down there to monitor just the Sallyport because it's not going to be right next to your offices anymore?
I mean, let's take a second to talk about what is the Rochester model. And I don't know, Doug, if you want to. Yeah, I know we don't have it open, but maybe if we bring it up. But while you do that, basically, you have a ramp going down to the Sallyport entrance. There's a Sallyport, there's holding cells, there is a monitoring station, there is a toilet room. There's an elevators that go straight up to where the courts are. We have a bunch of other space down there, which would not necessarily be here. We have to look at that, like mechanical space and things like that. We're not sure, right? But as far as the law enforcement piece of it, those are the main components, right, Doug? So Sallyport, holding area with some cells, a monitoring station, toilet room, elevators going up. We'll show you that right now. And not everything that's in a basement in Rochester would go here. It's only the left side, the right side of that. So Doug will show you that.
Yeah. So if this is the basement in that building, the Sallyport, they come in here, and then there's a control room with some holding cells and an elevator that leads up to the secure corridor. So this elevator right here leads to the secure corridor that comes up between the courtrooms. and that keeps it out of the pathways of the public and out of the pathways of the staff. I assume that that's the only way to do this where the courts are on the first floor,
Right.
and to maintain the separation of pathways that we know of, or the most reliable way, without getting into, you know, lockouts and things like that, which can cause a variety of issues.
Or adding
Um,
more hallways, which are it's square footage,
Mhm.
you know, all that
So-
stuff. Yeah.
So the difference here is that I just want to make sure that as a result of this change, Chief, are you going to want, like, let's say, a control room with a person that's stationed here? We have it here because there are holding cells in but I would anticipate in the building for Grafton County, since you have holding cells between the courtrooms, that won't be necessary. But I want to make sure to confirm that.
Yeah, I just have a question. Did the courts come back with any downsizing that did they come back with any changes to size? Because that'll lead into my next question. I don't know if anyone has the answer to that.
No, they did not. They felt like right out of the gate that they had given kind of a bare bones, what they needed. It was equal to what they have now as far as square footage is, and they have not provided any further reductions, so.
Okay, and then the second question would be, do the courts have to be connected? Because I know they are, as they are right now, they are. However, does the district court need to be connected to the superior court? Because if not, then the Sally Port could just come into the back of the building, like it's already the current design, with a secured hallway in the middle, which then branches into one court or the next court. I don't know if that would be an option, because if they don't need to be connected, then you could very easily split them up and it would save putting everything in the basement.
Hey, Jim and Julie, I did just want to speak to our space reductions because I do have the numbers here and I just kind of want to reiterate, what we have cut to date, compared to the Danson report, which was between Circuit and Superior, it was 33,770. And when we started out, back in January of 25, we had already come to the table with a very reduced space plan in terms of getting it down to bare bones. And at that point, our full program was 17,613. And with the efficiency factor, it was 22,897. And then, through the design process, everyone was asked to see, hey, what else can we do? And we were able to reduce our space by another 1,351 square feet, which brings us down to, like you said, Julie or Jim, just about to where we are today with our current space, our current exclusive space. So I just kind of wanted to reiterate what we've done to date because, we feel it's been, pretty significant and that we've really tried to play ball and make our space a very efficient plan.
Sarah,
You
can
can
you
also-
respond to Sheriff Myers' question, though, about the separation of the Superior from Circuit in regard to inmate transports?
Yeah, I'm not really sure without a visual, Sheriff, what you are conveying. And of course, we would have to see that, understand it, see what the impact is, and then play it back to the team. That's not something that, we could really make a decision on today without seeing it and understanding it and getting proper feedback.
Okay,
I mean,
no,
they
that's
are-
fine. I was just
they are-
wondering if they have to be connected, if the two
Well,
courts.
Doug and I are going to show you the answer, yes, by the support spines. We can address it now if you I'm sorry, if you give us a second, we'll show you in real time.
So I just want to answer the question as best I can, just with without fully laying out the ramifications of this, just to show what I believe that you're getting at. So first, to confirm, Chief, could you confirm this is essentially what you're talking about? Could the Sally Port be here, and then a secure corridor leads to this courtroom, and then these two courtrooms connects to the secure corridor in this fashion, basically?
No.
No.
I'm just saying, take where the Sally Port is and split the building right in half, right? You've got Circuit Court on one side and Superior Court on the other. You can still have like the public entrance and all that on the other end. But I'm just saying, would it make more sense to just go straight through the middle of the building and then branch out from there? That's where the Sally Port is. There's a secured hallway. And then, I mean, if the courts do need to commingle, they can use the public space up front. I don't know if judges sit in Superior Court and also sit in Circuit Court. I don't know what that looks like right now. I know there's kind of a shortage of judges going on. But yeah, something like what you're doing now.
Yeah, I would say, Sheriff, that, that would really segregate the court space if you did separate them from the backside. And that would really require duplicating, and I'm just looking at this at a high level, duplicating, space on either side, because you wouldn't have a way to walk freely in your space in the back hallway. And that was what we were looking at, the impact of going to the first floor. But Doug and Keith and Steve, feel free to weigh in as well.
So one thing that would be something that we'd have to, I think that we'd run into wherever we place these four primary pieces here. We have four assembly spaces, three of which the secure corridor is going to have to reach somehow. If we don't have multiple areas that can distribute to them in this way, for example, or in this way, we're going to have to travel through them to get there. And it's possible that we could switch, for example, courtroom number 1 and the jury assembly room. We could see if that worked. But even if we did that, in order to get to this courtroom, we would essentially have to go through another courtroom. You see what I mean?
Right. Unless you changed and like stacked the courtrooms up, shifted it. I'm just brainstorming. I know this is a meeting to go over.
Yeah. Yeah.
The beauty of doing the Sally Port in the basement and bringing, defendants up, is that it short circuits a lot of horizontal circulation, right, Doug? It creates a very efficient vertical means of getting them up, without having to split the courts and compromising traffic patterns and doing all of that. Would you agree with that, Doug? And so we'll look and see maybe if they could stay on the ground level, but
what are the pros and cons to putting the holding cells in the basement versus putting them directly on the first floor with the courts? I mean, right now we have them programmed to be with the court, like on the second floor with the courts. Is there any reason that it would make more sense if we're going to put the Sally Port in the basement, that the holding cells be in the basement as well? Like Rochester is designed.
Hey, Julie and Jim, so Rochester does have the cell block in the lower level, but they also have the holding cells in between the courtrooms.
Oh, okay.
And so it really just be, and that is typically a need. So you'd almost be, duplicating in the cell block area. That's my opinion.
The reason I asked, because I don't, just my ignorance and not knowing how that
Yeah.
works.
Yep.
Some of this can be determined by the length of time you anticipate a person will be in that holding cell. And so if it is something that, you know, there might be several people and you want to have one person monitoring them, then they can, that's the advantage. But if it is a limited time before their court appearance, and it's really just there being, I think that this was done with the idea that really they're going to be in the jail until they're needed. And Rochester Courthouse does not have a Department of Corrections adjacent to it. So that's a big difference.
Yeah, they would
So
only be a holding cell for a short period.
Mhm.
And there actually is a room at the jail that court security can use. So if there's someone that's going to be held longer, court security could go over and sit with them once the deputy transports back and forth. But I don't think we need a whole cell block in the building.
I think that makes a big difference, because I would think that would be a lot of added costs to be putting a cell block in the basement of the building.
Oh, yeah, no, I think we all agree that that wouldn't necessarily be doing that, that we would bring them in and then bring them upstairs and then use, because it's next to the jail, then use these temporary holding cells right at the courtrooms for temporary holding, if a case goes on hold or it's running late, or you got to take them out of the courtroom, but they wouldn't be in the basement and up here. Right?
We didn't all understand that, Bob, because that's why I asked the question.
Well, no, that's a great question. No,
It is.
that's a great question. By all means, I wasn't being glib. I totally get that. Yes.
So basically, we're looking at two things, either coming up from the basement with a sally port, or Sheriff Myers is questioning, hey, is there some possibility of kind of parking the sally port on the main floor there and basically stacking your courtrooms next to that sally port? And then Sarah's point to that is basically by doing that, they've lost that cross connection between the court staff areas, which are typical, would be typically at the back. And now you've got this barrier that you can't go through, which is that corridor that's designated just for inmate traffic. That segregates the two sections. Did I kind of summarize where we're at?
You did for me, Jim, in terms of, the pass of travel, and, that's like the fundamental element for courthouse design, the secure path, the judicial path, and the public path. And if you had that connecting right on the ground level, it would interfere with the judicial path of travel. And you couldn't get to either side of their space, basically. And I'm not sure if I'm describing that correctly or visibly to people or not, but that is our major concern.
So there is a need for the courts to kind of cross back and forth into each areas unhindered.
Correct.
Can I ask how many other courts in New Hampshire have a circuit court and superior court in the same building?
Let's see.
I just didn't know if that, because I know a lot of times it's just a circuit or just a superior.
Excuse me.
Probably about 5 or 6, Julie. I would say in that range. I can give you some examples like Coas and Carroll County, and Lancaster and Cheshire. Hill South down in Nashua. Those are all owned buildings. Some of our combined buildings are Stratford County, Grafton, Sullivan.
Okay.
Actually, Sullivan is not combined. It's just located next to the circuit court.
So it is possible to have them separate, but it would be best to have them have some
Yeah,
kind
no, I would say, with our current design, any new construction, capital construction, state-owned, or any of our newer leases that we've done through RFPs, if we're going to, design something, it's typically all designed together if in fact that's what exists in the area. Certainly if there was a proposal, I'd go back to our team, which includes the judicial branch as well, and we could certainly discuss it, but per this design, we would want it to be free-flowing. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, so back to where we were, it sounds like to me that the Valley, sounds like the direction would be to basically put things back in the basement again, try to establish the paths up to the first floor where the courts would be. Go through all the reductions and see where we land.
Sounds good.
Yeah, makes sense. I just want to clarify one thing, Jim, because maybe I'm the only one in this call confused about it. Is Deeds will be moving to the new building, or are they staying in the current location?
They're moving to the new building.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought, because prior to that, I thought, yes, okay.
Yeah, I
And
may have confused things there in the beginning. No, there's just been a number of times that, we've advocated that the commissioners reconsider that. And 2 out of 3 are very determined that the Deeds needs to be in the new building.
okay, I thought so, but just want to make sure, that's all.
Okay, so before I open anything up to the public, obviously, LaValle, you've got your direction on what you need to do. Julie and Jill, sounds like you're gonna put your heads together and figure out what the extra, what it's gonna cost for extra deputies that are needed to support the new facility. Is there anything else that I'm missing? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and open up the meeting to the public for public comment. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Do I have any public comment?
Yes. Has Sheriff Myers been to the Rochester building to see that plan, that model? And if not, can she go there to view it?
I
Sheriff,
would, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
say, Sheriff, why don't you
No.
go ahead and speak?
I haven't been there. And I guess I could. If
I think a good suggestion would be, Sheriff, since you have these concerns that are gonna cost the taxpayers of Grafton County money, maybe you should take a ride over there. It might be worth your while to take a ride over there and view it. See the visual plant and see if it meets your needs.
The project's under construction now. We were just there last week. The basement area is still not finished out, but there are other facilities that Sarah and Steve could probably recommend that are laid out in a very similar fashion, right, Sarah?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you're recommending the Rochester plan and you're telling me now that it is even
No,
complete?
No, sir, what we're telling you is that it's based on a model which is already existing in other locations. So the sheriff can definitely go to one of the locations. We'll provide that, or Sarah will, and she
Where-
can
where
see
are
that
the-
model.
Which ones are those?
We're
Sarah
just
can-
supposed to be doing public comment here, not question and answers, so
Okay, that's fine, sorry.
nope.
Well, the
Mr.
public
DeMayo
is
knows
not-
that.
our dime. You're talking about our dime, Julie. You're talking about our dime. We should.
My
ask
dime is, my
questions.
dime as well, Mr. DeMayo.
Oh, yeah, but you make a lot more money than I make.
I don't know that that's always been true, Mr. DeMayo, but we're not going to debate
Well,
that.
yeah, that's true, from what I've observed. I'm not trying to get personal, but I'm on a.
Well, you always do, so
Many-
let's move
many
on.
people in this county are on fixed incomes, and just to know where she's going and how much it's gonna cost us. Never have an opportunity to ask any questions. Sometimes, the commissioners don't have all the answers. People have a lot of answers and questions too.
Mr. DeMayo, do you have any other further feedback other than recommending sheriff look at the Rochester facility?
Well, it's either the Rochester one or whatever is close to the Rochester one, Jim.
Understood. Do you have any further feedback?
No, thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak? I'd like to make a motion that we close this meeting then. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Somebody gonna second it?
Second,
Very good. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
thanks,
you.
bye.